The Magicians Podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic, and Gigio.
Harry, I don't believe it. Look over this. It's only Alan Hudson, star of episode 38, and Tom Elderfield, star of episode 26 in season 7, coming soon. Boys, what are you doing here?
Yo, it's my life, my time, my rights, my rhymes, my grind, my struggle, hustle, sweat in my blood too. I'm ready to smell fear, I smell a lot. My competitors fled scared, cause they smelled I was hot. I want it all, excess, the sex, much success, stress us. I want it all, no less, so come on.
You're listening to the Magicians Podcast, free every Friday on iTunes, Podbean, and Stitcher. Hello everybody, my name is Richard Young, I am your host, welcome to the show. I sincerely appreciate you tuning in as always. Believe it or not, this is episode 21 of season 3, which means after today's episode with Harry De Cruz, there are only 3 episodes of the series to go, and today is the day I'm going to tell you how the series is going to end. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to tell you this. I've been sat on this for so long, and today is the day I can finally tell you how the series is going to end. It is going to be amazing. Next Friday here on the feed, there will be a special double bill with the incredible double act Barry and Stuart. They will have an episode each. I'll be sitting down with Barry Jones and Stuart McLeod individually to talk about their incredible magic that you have seen them perform everywhere on TV and on stage over the last decade or so. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to share it with you. So put it in your diary right now. That's next Friday, a double bill with Barry and Stuart. And then we will move on to the season finale the following week. Friday, the 9th of September, is the end of the series for the Magicians Podcast this year, and I am so excited to announce that my guest in the final episode of this series is the one and only Darren Brown. Darren Brown is going to be right here on the 9th of September. It is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to meet the great man to discuss his incredible career. And there is an opportunity for you in this too, because the interview has not been recorded yet. So have you always wanted to ask him a question? Well, you can do it through me. Go to our Twitter feed right now at Magician Podcast, or go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Magicians Podcast, or you can even email me personally, info@richardyoungmagic.com, and I will ask Darren Brown your questions. What do you want to know about the great man? Get in touch with me right now, let me know, and I will endeavour to ask him your question in the season finale of the Magicians Podcast. It is going to be incredible. Put it in your diary right now. That's Friday, the 9th of September, the season finale of the Magicians Podcast with Darren Brown. I am bloody good to you lot. Not only do you have all that to look forward to over the next 2 weeks, but today is a real treat too. My guest is Harry De Cruz. He's been mentioned many times on these podcasts over the last couple of years. He's only 22 years old. He is the youngest magician to ever sit in my hot seat here on the Magicians Podcast. He's had a really unique perspective of our weird and wonderful industry over the last 5 years or so. He worked backstage at Britain's Got Talent in a non-magician role. He's been working with Dynamo for the last 4 years. He is a very important part of the Dynamo team. He worked on the tour and also the TV shows, and most recently he's been working alongside Paul Kieve on the Groundhog Day show, which has been at the Old Vic in London. Harry is also a really funny kid. I adore him. I've known him since he was 15 years old, and about 6 months ago I asked if he would consider being on the podcast as a guest. He said no, and when I asked him why, he said, because De Cruz is too big and the podcast is too small. I have no doubt whatsoever that Harry is going to do some amazing things in our industry over the next decade, so it is entirely my honour to have him on the show today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview with Harry De Cruz and a few unexpected magicians who just happened to be passing by while we were recording. So it's episode 69. There are 4 to go of this series, and The next 3 are very, very exciting guests. This week, I'm here with someone who has wanted to be on the podcast for a long time. Actually, quite the opposite. So I'm going to tell the story truthfully. Harry, who I'm sat with, I've asked to be on the podcast before, and he said no. And why did you say no, De Cruz?
I'm a big deal. Look, listen, mate. I have had 7 name checks on these series.
You've kept count.
only beaten by Anthony Owen, and I told you that I would do the podcast when David Copperfield agreed to do a season finale with double bill with me, and so here I am eating my words. Congratulations on securing Copperfield.
Yeah, I forgot that was your condition. Actually, yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
David Copperfield season finale. Anyway, right, so, yes, De Cruz, you are, well, first of all, let's tell everyone where we are. We are sat, I've never done a podcast in a park before. We're sat in a park, we're sat on a bench. We look like Rick Mail and Aid Edmondson in the intro to Bottom.
Yep.
You should know what that is. You're too young.
I grew up on it. My dad grew me up on Bottom and Madness.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that surprises me. And, well, listen, you are the youngest guest we've ever had on the podcast. How does that feel?
That you're scraping the barrel.
I'm not scraping the barrel at all. And actually, let's be fair. Let's give you your due credit before I tear you apart a little bit later on. You're a very impressive young man, aren't you? You're 21 now? 22. And you've already done a national tour. You've worked on the biggest TV show in the country. You are the right-hand man, other than Dan Albion, to
Dynamo.
one of the biggest Magic stars in the country, Dynamo. Here's a good first question. Which one of those things is your favourite?
It's all about, for me, it is the performing. It's about the performing, but everything relates back to it. So without anything I had with Dynamo, it's massively improved. Everything I've had with Dynamo has massively improved. Everything, performing aspects to me, like business, I've definitely learned from Dan, or just a reason to do a trick like Dynamo, that he's so specific about what material he uses.
Yeah.
So it all kind of combines into one, but the performing, which I've done from a young age, is what it is for me.
We should talk about that. So you started at a young age, because actually a previous guest on the podcast was your mentor, Colonel Custard, believe it or not, Paul Megram.
Episode 30.
Episode 30, well done for looking that up. I should have known that. Episode 30, Paul Megram. Took you under his wing when you were even younger than you are now. Do you want to...
Yeah, so he was the first magician I ever saw. He was the magician that everyone sees at a kids' party, and he's huge. There's not a kid in Buckinghamshire who doesn't know who he is, and there's a reason for that. It's because he's the best. I strongly think he's the best and kids magician there is. And he took me under his whim. It's hard to concentrate. There is a pug walking past us in this park. I can see why you do this in people's homes usually, but I'm too skint to have a home. Paul Megram is amazing, and I learnt everything from him. So about 10 years old, he took me under his wing, and my mum used to run these courses for kids in the summer school, like drama courses and acting courses, and one of them was magic, which Paul taught, and I became his sort of tutor assistant, and we did that for many years. And so he took me under his wing, and I got thrown in the deep end really. I learned all his skills, whether that's circus or balloon modelling or magic, and he sort of took me to gigs at a young age. So I sort of did my first professional gig when I was 11, but by the time I was...
That's insane. So first of all, congratulations to Megram, adding on 15% to an 11-year-old who's at the point. You did your first gig when you were 11.
Yeah, I did a wedding.
What was that, Circus Workshop or something like that? Or?
That was a wedding. Well, it was my first professional gig where it was someone I didn't even know, and it was just a wedding for someone like this beautiful Abbey, and my mum told me to half my fee because she was shocked that an 11-year-old would be asking for 70 quid. But it was all down to Paul, and then by the time I was sort of 13, 14, I was working with people like you at joint gigs, people like you, and then Tim Shoesmith and people like that, and so they all sort of taught me from an early age, and I got to go to all his clubs, and he introduced me to that world. He taught me about the Young Magicians Club, which I joined at 10 and did the full 8 years of. So it was all started with him, and he taught me everything I know, specifically about business. You know, he talks about it in his podcast, but he's such a businessman and knows exactly how to handle clients. It just taught me all the groundings from a young age.
Let's talk about the Young Magicians Club, because you're so young. Actually, you went through the process when the club is what it is today. When I was younger, it was very different. You joined, what age did you join Young Magicians
10 years
Club?
old, yeah.
10 years old, and you went all the way through to your 18,
Yes.
You joined the circle. was it a big help to you, the Young Magicians Club, or did it just keep the motivation going because every month there was something going on? Or?
Yeah, massively. I think the big thing about it is magic isn't cool. It's just not cool. And so at that age, going somewhere where you have like-minded people, but also there was no outside influences. I think now it may have changed a little bit because there is one type of element of magic that is cool, which is street magic. So I think you've got a lot of the kids doing it. But back then you could choose anything. You could choose doves, you could choose comedy magic, you could do close-up stage, manips, and it was all. It was great to be able to have a groundings in all of those. So I sort of felt like I learned a bit of everything and made friends in different industries. My closest friend is Ed Hilsum, and he's a dove magician. So I've just knowing things like that has helped me, and the staging and the misdirection that's required within that kind of magic has helped me massively when it comes to close-up. And so, yeah, I think Young Magicians Club is amazing for kids. I don't think there's a better way forward to learn magic and learn such a good base for everything.
One of the things I'm really interested to get from you today is your opinion, because
Right.
you are the youngest person we've had on the podcast. So, and I watch your magic and the things you like in magic, and of course when we talk privately, you tell me about the things you don't like in magic as well. And because you're of your youth, it's always about moving things forward and things being contemporary. Can I ask you? What things, for example, about the Young Magicians Club would you change as someone who's been through the process?
I think it is about the people teaching you need to be aware of that. I think at the moment there's not enough people who the kids like. Another dog coming up to us after every question.
Don't throw its tennis ball because it's just going to bring it back to you. You have to throw it again.
I think so. These days, people are loving the Illusionist brand, Daniel Madison and people. I think they need to be learning from those. But I also think it's massively important, which they do, which is learning from the workers. And they bring them in and they teach them the real world about understanding that. So I think it's very important to them.
Okay. In magic in general, this is something I've been waiting to ask you actually, because I'm quite excited to know. See, I told you, he's brought the ball back.
He's brought the ball back. Sorry, fella. I'm not going to...
Sorry, fella.
I'm recording a podcast here. I'm a big deal.
Lovely time. In magic, the stuff that you see around you as someone who's 22 years old and you're immersed in magic, as Mark Paul would say, you're having your immersive experience in magic right now because you live in London and you're doing Dynamo and performing yourself and working on lots of other interesting projects. What in magic do you see today that looks old-fashioned to you that would perhaps surprise some older performers?
I feel that the magicians that the public know, such as Dynamo, have managed to make the audience feel magic's a little more powerful with everyday objects in that sense. So I think old-fashioned magic is completely okay and it definitely deserves its place, but I think public these days expect magic to be done with nothing or borrowed objects or their phones and that kind of stuff. And I think that very proppy magic is sort of frowned upon by public. I think they kind of look at a box and think it's dodgy, and I think we've always known that, but there's been no alternative until now, when you've got such a forefront of magic, like in technology, people like Mark Kirstein doing incredible things. That's a pure magic effect that happens with nothing but them and their phone, and I think that's where magic should be going. It's more honest, propless, stand-up comedy style, very honest, Well,
that makes me jump ahead. That makes me immediately think of the Dynamo live show that was touring last year that obviously you were involved with.
Yeah.
He had a huge budget and amazing production, but actually the show was fairly minimalistic in terms of there were no boxes or big props. The decision was made for the same reason that you've just said, basically. Is that
sure? He's kind of done that. We were forced into that place that everything he's ever done on his show is always borrowed object or a found object in the location he's in, unless it's a deck of cards or something, which is completely justified for a magician to have. And that led to our show where it was like, well, we can't just have a box on stage. We can't have an illusion that looks like that. We can't have assistants bringing people on or a double act, and that it was a massive challenge for misdirection with no props and no double act, and to accomplish certain effects with the little amount of props as possible was definitely a challenge. But that's where it stemmed from. Like he had to do that. He was forced to, because that's what his TV show was built on, and therefore that's what his brand was built on. People would be surprised otherwise.
So although of course you're a performer yourself, and we're going to talk a bit about your magic and what you want to do in the future a little bit later on, obviously I think what most people would know you for at the moment is the fact that you've worked alongside Dynamo for the last 4 years or so. You've been there for the end of the TV shows, and also you were there on the live tours. You've done the corporate gigs, the publicity stuff as well. I think the first thing that I can imagine a lot of our younger listeners are wondering is, how on earth did you get that gig? How did it come about? It's a dream job for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah,
working alongside
massively.
Dynamo.
It came around from I went to college to study TV and film as a sideline to magic in case I couldn't do magic as a performance. I wanted to be a cameraman to travel the world with David Attenborough. That was the dream.
Okay.
So I studied that. I then got a job at Fountain Studios, which is where they filmed X Factor and British Got Talent, so I got to work on those kind of shows. And from there, a number of magicians sort of knew me as, well, magic and TV experience, and put me forwards towards the Dynamo team as a runner for the consultancy team, which at the time consisted of Danny Garcia, Blake Voigt, Enrique de la Vega, Alex Frank, incredible people. And I got brought across to the team, so I started working on Series 3 because I was a bit too young to work on Series 2 at the time. And so I worked there as a runner for the team, so they could have someone heading out and buying magic props, or at least understanding how a prop would be made. If we had to go out and buy some bricks for something, it was like, I understand why we're looking for that kind of weird prop. And there's definitely been some weird props I've had to buy in the past to accomplish certain effects. And they left, and those consultancy teams have changed, and I slowly went up through those ranks. And now I'm left, 4 years later, I'm the coordinator consultant for them. So everything that involves magic, I oversee and help organise and help consult on. But that includes, as you said, his corporates, his gigs, his close-ups, his stage, and the live tour, and merchandise. We released a magic kit as well, and the future as well, which will help for us.
I've got to ask this question. What occurs to me straight away is the fact that you have lived through a magician being at the absolute top of this industry, and you've seen what it's like. But you're so young. Does there a little side to you? Do you kind of go, oh God, like, I'm sort of, am I ever going to get to this level myself? What if I don't? How am I going to find happiness? Maybe not being Dynamo, but just being how have you thought about that side of it? That you've sort of been to the top of the industry.
I peaked.
Well, alongside somebody else, though, haven't you?
Yeah. Regarding fame, I wouldn't want to be famous. I've seen that side of things, which I just wouldn't like. I don't like the idea of having everything you do, everything you look, every time where you look, scrutinised by the press and other people. So I'm not a fan of that.
Dee talked about that on his podcast here, didn't he? About the day his granddad died, I think. And
yes.
He went into Starbucks, and you can listen to it. It was the last episode of Series 2 of the Magicians podcast, episode 48, I believe.
Yeah, the fame side of things is quite weird. You can't just go to the cash point wearing, your dodgy, dirty clothes you've been eating pizza in, because the paps are going to get you. And then when it comes to the actual industry, it's been amazing to live alongside someone have that lifestyle. We've been very lucky to have been flown around the world doing those things, and whether or not that, I don't know if it will happen with me. It's unlikely that lifestyle will ever happen with me as a performer, so I guess I've been quite used to that. I'm not too sure how it'll ever happen. I guess it won't really. Oh, it's like therapy. I'm going to break down here. I'm never going to go to Australia again. So yeah.
Well, that's what you're about to do next, isn't it? The Dynamo show's going off to Australia, and you're going with the show in November, I believe.
Yeah, the whole November. So we did the UK tour, which was 111 dates over 6 months, 15 cities, and now that is going to Australia for a month. We're doing 5 cities out there. Just taking it around the world, really, which will be a lot of fun. I've never been out there before, and the tour itself is an amazing experience to be on. If you ever get a chance to go, you've done the Champions Tour, to live on the tour bus, to live with a crew, to have that kind of world, be immersed in it. You get nothing else but that tour. It's incredible.
So let's talk a little bit about your magic, Harry. What sort of stuff do you really love? I say, what's a better question actually first? What sort of magic do you not like?
It's magic that, actually it's magicians who don't think from the spectator's point of view. So, for example, if you're doing a money effect, think about what the spectator's viewpoint on money is. Do they have money? Do they not care about it? Do they need money? I think those kind of effects, we're discussing today about extreme burn and those kind of things, about what a spectator's viewpoint of it is. Or do they think this prop is odd? Do they think it looks old? Do they think it's suspicious? And that's important for the public to relax and enjoy it and believe it.
Let's cover that, actually, because you spoke very passionately about it earlier on today, about your thoughts on extreme burn. So that you, of course, you all know it, the trick where the blank paper turns into 20 or 50 pound notes. You don't do it, you don't like it. Explain why.
I think it looks beautiful. It's a phenomenal trick. I'm not a fan of performing that stuff because I don't know their financial situation. I'm a young guy, so I perform to people who are my age, who are at uni, who have no money. And so producing £100 in front of them just was arrogant. It was just, they need that £100 and I can't give it away because I can't actually produce money. And I think whatever financial status you are, like if you're a celebrity or not, or if you're just a gig magician, if you can produce money, you should be able to give it away. And yeah, there's loads of gags you can do. There's a reason not to give it away. Or it's that, or also there's the opposite of people maybe have money at events. And does it seem weird that you're bringing it out and producing it? And I guess part of it is my childhood. I was never talked about money with my family. Like it was never a discussion, public thing. It was always a private thing. And it's quite personal. You never know their financial situation. And I think that relates to every kind of magic as well. And what you're saying to them, what you're doing to them, and what those jokes are. For example, if you are a comedy magician, most comedians would be thoughtful about what those jokes are and how they lead into that conversation. Like people I know it's a weird tangent here, but people go and see Jimmy Carr knowing it's going to be quite a rude or crude show. And I don't like it when magicians don't think about, where they sort of spring themselves onto people. You need to ease the audience into it and know who they are, and they need to know who you are, and therefore that will allow you to choose what your jokes are, your material is, and then your effects as well.
Let's go back in time. One of the first sort of really amazing things which you did was you landed a job working on Britain's Got Talent, and it was nothing to do with magic. That's fair to say, isn't it? You were.
No,
what was your actual role?
I worked for the studios directly. I was a runner for the studios. So
you worked at Fountain Studios, yes, where they filmed the live finals. So which year was that you did it?
It was the year that Bernhoff and Young, the I think Swedish act, were on it. It was the year after David Penn, so it was when magic kind of was a bit more accepted, but still a very big oddity. It was the year before James Moore.
Yeah.
And
the Swedish guy's great act. There's no doubt about that. He did the Harry Potter illusion. I remember it. You can look it up on YouTube. Tell us, De Cruz, you were the other side of the fence. You were not there as a magician. How was magic viewed by the production team and the people in the studios and all that kind of thing?
It's laughable. It's laughable. And at that point as well, I don't think magic was big on TV, so therefore a lot of public didn't sort of defend it. Like these days people go, no, I do like magic, because I've seen Blaine, I've seen Dynamo, I've seen Troy and these people. So it was laughable, and they knew that, and they knew they were just chucking it in there because it was one variety act they can tick off the list. Now, especially in America, it's loved. Like there's multiple magicians on the America's Talent Finals. And it showed because I got to see how they produced those acts and how they got to take control of those acts and what they wanted to do. No, you're not doing that. You want to do something like this. We're not giving you that budget. We're going to put you in this position. It wasn't nice. It wasn't nice to see. I don't know how it is now. I don't know. Maybe people like Jamie and James and Darcy have sort of changed that mould, but it still seems quite odd and suspicious. I guess Richard won it this year. But I think they still see it as a oddity.
Would you ever do it?
No.
You wouldn't do it? Why?
No, I don't like the idea of... I've seen... Okay, so I've also not only worked on it behind the scenes, I also helped an act audition. And I've seen how they can just control you and twist you and edit you exactly how you want, how they can give you a standing ovation, how they can take it away from you, everything about it. And it's scary to give someone or a team of people control over you and therefore your public and your career.
Let's talk about another great gig you did. For many, many years, you worked with Young and Strange.
Big time.
As our stage manager stroke T-boy.
Head of catering.
Head of catering. What were some of the highlights of that job?
Let's start off with where we started, because I was a stooge.
You were a stooge.
I was a stooge, which you thought was a clever idea to give a 14-year-old kid a dinner jacket to wear to a matinee show for a stooge.
You did
the most suspicious.
We did the spirit cabinet with the where the jacket goes over the top and it's immediately on the medium, and we were struggling to find a stooge, and it ended up being.
Megan was doing the guest spot, so Megan was like, "I've got a little fella who can help."
There's a video of that somewhere.
Yeah.
I should put it on YouTube. Maybe I shouldn't.
It's embarrassing. And then
You've done a lot of. This will get serious for a second. Though. You've done a lot of actually tech for magicians, haven't you, over the years? I know it's not something you want to do going forward, but it is something you did in the early days.
It stemmed from something that Paul taught me, which was just learn everything, and just hang around with as many people as possible. Which is why I learnt all those circus skills and balloon things. And then I started doing tech work, so I volunteered at the Magic Circle, doing their stage shows. And then with people like you, I got to work with Piff, and I got to work with those other people, Hudson, and I just learnt so much from it. I got to learn the tech side of things, sound, lighting, and illusions. And
you don't have to name names, but because you did work with so many acts, you can name names if you want. By the way, we love that here on the podcast. But what were some of the magicians you saw who did tech very well? It's a big part of being a magician, actually, is having a limited tech time and having to plot your lighting. Was there any stuff you saw over the years of magicians who did it particularly well?
Piff and Alex Jarrett knew exactly where they were going with it. It was a honed team that just know the brand, know the show inside out. Whereas you get other people who just not sure, and I think it's something they can learn about. Morgan and West talk about learning the art of theatre before going into it. I think it's super important, and you guys did it really well too. We had a lot of fun touring, mainly with me in the back of the van with illusions. There were 4 of us in the team. Van seats 3. Guess who goes in the back? And it was a little old De Cruz.
Do you remember when you hid in one of the illusions? When we opened the van, you had apparently vanished because you were hidden in a base. Brilliant.
And I got tiny in the squeeze box as well.
That was, you did that as well. Very, very funny.
When you're in the back of a van for 3 hours on the way to
deepest, darkest Kent.
Yeah, you get creative and you try out some of the illusions. It turns out I don't fit in a Dakota chair, but I do fit in a squeeze box.
You do. What sort of magic do you think you'll do a few years down the road from here? Obviously, like I said, you've obviously been working with lots of other magicians, but it's all for a grand plan, obviously, to have your own performing career. What sort of magic really appeals to you that you think is going to suit you down the road?
I think of it as a stand-up magic type thing, so like sort of Justin Willman style, which would be a natural. I like to look at a lot of outside sources, and that would be stand-up comedy mainly, and looking at how much stand-up comedy has changed and trying to fit with that too. This will sort of stem into the last question which you're going to ask me, but it's about being current, and I think comedians have changed, dance has changed, theatre's changed in general, and sticking with that. So I want to make sure I feel modern. I don't mean modern in the sense of like I'm wearing a leather jacket on stage, like a lot of illusionists feel. I feel being personable, being natural, being a young guy, chatting with the audience, like you get with the comedians.
Yeah. Of course, you are also a working close-up magician. You enjoy doing that?
Yeah. I think I'm in a lucky position, which is that I have the full-time job, which allows me to pick and choose the close-up gigs I do. For example, I do a residency at Café de Paris every weekend in London, which is an amazing cabaret venue, and I love cabaret. I think it's incredible because it's the closest. Well, when I do close-up there, it's the closest I can get to at the moment of having people come to see me. They come to see a show. They come to see some enjoyment. You don't have to do a corporate where you're sort of pushing yourself upon them and go, "Oh, I'm a magician trying to see." No, they're ready to see some magic. Cabaret's great. They see a full variety show. They're up for it, and they're loving it.
So your week at the minute consists of working for Dynamo Monday to Friday, then you're doing close-up gigs at the weekend. Is that basically what you do? Essentially,
yeah. And then as many gigs as possible in the evenings too.
So tell us what a day at Dynamo HQ is like.
It's so varied because of the amount of projects we have. So we have so many things working on at once. For example, last year we were having, we did a Fiat event, and then we straight onto the tour, which went on straight onto also creating a magic kit at the same time, and loads of press for it and promo. It varies every day because you've got radio, TV, and development process. And development is more than just, for most magicians, coming up with a trick on their own and sort of seeing where you can go with it. A tour that big is just huge. There was over 30 of us on that tour with 12 trucks, and everything that I say has to be not only okay, but also if it changes, it's lighting, sound, show caller, stage management, and everything else about it. So it's a big operation. There's a moment where it's nerve-wracking when you get given that responsibility as well. Because I was a young guy, and they go, Harry, here are our venues for the tour. And I go no to Blackpool because I've been there, Blackpool Opera House. I've been there every year and it's awful for Magic to watch it from. And they go, all right, off the list. And I'm panicking. I've just wiped out a 3,000-seater venue off the list. So there's a lot of responsibility when it comes to it. It's nerve-wracking, but the whole thing's a team effort. So a day is different every day. It depends on what sort of task we're on. And we're always working on tasks for the future.
So very recently, actually, you've been working with, I think I'm allowed to say this, you've been working with Paul Kieve.
Yes, he's a god.
Yeah, he's done some amazing work over the years. My favourite stuff, obviously, was the stuff which he did in Ghost, which was in the West End a few years ago. It's also touring the country later this year. I think some of the magic's not in the touring show, but some of it is, I assume. How have you come about working with Paul?
I actually saw Paul when I was at the Young Magicians Club, and he did a tour of the circle, and sort of got fascinated by the history of it. And he was always just like one of these amazing figures who creates incredible magic. The vanishing appearance in Ghost, which you'll never see again unless it has a particular theatre it's been built in, was the best magic effect I've ever seen in my life. Watching a guy materialise and disappear on stage, which you think is a hologram at first, but it's not. So I was always fascinated by him, and then it came to we had an event with Fiat, a sponsorship with Fiat, and Paul helped with it. Essentially, it was a Pepper's Ghost illusion, which Dynamo created, light in the air. It's very theatrical as well. It sort of took him a different direction.
Oh, I mean, if you've never seen this, you need to go and look it up on YouTube right now. It's Dynamo producing the new Fiat car.
Yeah, Fiat 400X. And
it's an amazing piece of magic. I think, let's be fair, I think some people would say it's probably one of the best things Dynamo's ever been part of, actually.
I think so. It's been said, if it was weird for me to say it, but like people said it's like one of the best car productions there's been because it came from nowhere. He basically created light on stage and you couldn't understand where that was coming from. The car then formed around him and then appeared from nowhere. And the video does not do it justice. There's been a number of people who saw it live, and it was incredible. And so Paul was a massive part of that. And we worked very closely with him there. And then when it came to the live tour, we had to get him on board because he created the most futuristic thing we'd ever done. And that's exactly what we want to do with Dynamo, is push him towards the future. So we worked with him on the live tour. So there's incredible effects in the show. If you've seen it, massively down to him. He's a hero. And then he was working on a musical called Groundhog Day the Musical, which is based in the Bill Murray film Groundhog Day, where someone lives the same day over and over again. And it's by the same team behind Matilda musical, which is Tim Minchin, the songwriter and composer, and then Matthew Walkus, the director, same set and same choreographer. And then Paul was doing the illusions, and he knew how much of a big fan I was of Tim Minchin and the Matilda shows, and he brought me on board for it. So we had to create the magic that was featured in that show. And I don't want to ruin too much about it, but there were essentially you're helping reset a day. Is the easiest way of saying it?
Yeah, you don't want to spoil it. I saw the show a couple of weeks ago. It's at the Old Vic in London, and yeah, there's some amazing moments. It's very interesting to watch because it's a musical and a play, and the audience sit there enjoying it, and then there's some incredible magic, and it actually provokes applause, which you very rarely see in musical theatre, but other than when someone does a big number or something. But the audience, they don't know how else to react other than to applaud when they see these, as you said, without ruining it, these scenes reset themselves immediately in a magical way. You plan to work with Paul a bit more in the future, or?
Down to him, but I would love to. Theatre is an absolute dream place to work, just down to the dedication and effort that goes into it. I saw the show develop over its preview period and how much it changes, and it's just incredible. I'm lucky that I get to work in TV with Dynamo, but theatre and doing the live tour with Dee and doing the theatre show with Groundhog just taught me how much that world can teach everything else you do.
Let's talk a bit about that, because really what you're referring to there is how hard people work in a show like that, in comparison perhaps to how hard magicians work generally in day-to-day life. I think it's fair to say. Give us an insight into how much rehearsal and work is being done on this show. How many people are working on it behind the scenes?
Yeah, well, as I said with the Dynamo show, it was I think nearly 40 of us, and those 11 trucks that we toured, massive crew on it. And then the same with Groundhog Day. It's just, if you look at the programme, the list just goes on forever. They were writing that show for 4 years and doing workshops throughout it. And just that rehearsal process, they were doing endless rehearsals through the day, and then they were doing the shows in the evening, developing it and making notes for the next morning, changing it the next day. And I think you have to they looked at every single bit, every line, every move, every set change, every bit, every single prop. I think magicians need to do the same thing. Look at, script your close-up. That is a massive thing I've kind of felt like I've learnt from this. I think we're all getting there. I think we're all learning from that. But just understand everything you do. You're in complete control.
The Magicians Podcast brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Get Gigi-O, my friends, is the website address you will need to take a free 30-day trial right now, which will save you hours in your office every single week. Gigi-O is a web-based software designed for professional and semi-professional entertainers anywhere in the world. It generates PDF contracts and invoices, it tracks your payments, it updates the diary on your phone automatically, it's fully integrated with PayPal, and even has a really cool venue lookup feature, so if you visit the same venues over and over again, you won't have to type out the address every single time. You can even schedule emails to your clients to save you hours and hours every single week. Read what others are saying about it and take a free 30-day trial right now at getgigio.com. Gigio is spelled Giggio.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website, www.alakazam.co.uk, or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
Tell me a bit about the future for you then, De Cruz. Would you want to go down the road of, being a younger version of Paul Kieve, or do you really want to be a performer yourself and try and be the next Dynamo, or, what floats your boat looking to the future, maybe 5 years from now? What would you like to be doing?
I think both. It's like, if I can be greedy, I'm writing my own one-man show, which I'm about 50% through at the moment, but I need an end goal, and where that'll go I'm not too sure. I'm a big fan. I respect massively people who go and do their own one-man shows and go to Edinburgh and that. I'm a big fan of that, and I'd like to do that. I think it's a great goal to have and as an accomplishment, but also being able to work as a team on those projects and see a show take place like that, like being in that audience where everyone gives a standing ovation or a gasp or an applause at the moments that I've worked on, or knowing that TV shows I've worked on have had like awards. It's really rewarding, and it's amazing to work as part of a team. That's the whole. I think the reason I like the consultancy is because I learn, and as the same with the reason I did the tech work with you and Circle, because you're always learning, which just massively helps yourself. I'm getting paid to learn from the world's best consultants, the world's best teams. I'm getting paid to learn all that and then take it to myself. I'm very lucky, and I won't tell them that unless they listen to this podcast, but I'm just robbing them of all their knowledge.
Harry, I don't believe it. Look over this. It's only Alan Hudson, star of episode 38, and Tom Elderflower, star of episode 26 in season 7, coming soon. Boys, what are you doing here?
He'll never be on the show.
Will.
Sad times.
Hang on, we'll move up. Come and sit yourself on the park bench.
How's it going? What are you doing? I'm doing a podcast.
We're recording a podcast.
Oh, I haven't done my hair. We had no idea.
Yeah, no idea.
It's good of you to join us, guys. How's it going?
What have you been talking about?
The cruise.
My limited career span.
Dynamo, BGT.
Done.
Is that all covered?
That's all covered.
They've got Copperfield on then.
We should introduce Tom Elderfield. Sorry, he's sat over there. He you work with Harry De Cruz, don't you? Stop putting the cut thing across your neck. You're on the show now, so say hello, Tom.
Hi.
There you go. And you work with Dynamo too, don't you?
Yeah, I do, but all through Harry.
All through Harry.
Oh God, you're saying that.
Did you get in the gig?
It's all through me. Yeah.
And of course, you will remember Alan
Definition.
Hudson, star of episode 38, and also
That's
star,
what I'm best known for.
and also until fairly soon when you will become known as star of episode whatever of the Next Great Magician,
Yeah.
which you're on. Let's have a little update, Alan. You've recorded Next Great Magician. It's in the can.
It's in the can. It's all done.
Can you give us any spoilers?
I can tell you it's going to be now on November.
Yep.
Spill the beans.
I think that's about it. We've signed a disclaimer, haven't we? You're in it as well.
We don't.
NDA'd.
mention that. So yeah, it's going to be on Sunday nights now, isn't it? Not
Yeah,
Saturday
Sunday night.
nights.
Starting in November is the latest I've heard, but that might change again.
It's
It's going to be the best magic show on TV for years.
Absolutely.
No offence, Dynamo, if you're listening.
This is my podcast.
This is the De Cruz podcast. Does anyone have a question for De Cruz?
Yes, I've got a question. All right. So you know all these old magicians that they don't like the younger magicians, that like the Instagram generation.
Yeah.
And you and Tom and a few others do tricks on Instagram. What would you say to those magicians? Why are you doing tricks on Instagram? What that you can't do in real life? That's their question, isn't it?
So the trick is, why are you doing it on Instagram, or why?
Yeah, why are you doing these tricks on Instagram that you can't do in real life, that you can only do there?
I think it's about understanding it's a completely different art form. Like there's some, because you can't. There's magic. You can go into that deep philosophy of like, what is magic and is it the experience, etc. But some of the magic effects that you can achieve on Instagram, like Tom does. Tom's Instagram is incredible. That you can achieve on there, you couldn't do in real life. Does that mean that the public, or you shouldn't show them? Does that mean people shouldn't experience an amazing magic trick and be fooled and entertained because of it? And I think it's just understanding that is the reason it's there. That I do get the you can't do it in real life side of things. You maybe could if you had enough setup, but yeah, close-uppers can't do that. But they've got that problem with TV magic. They've got a problem with films, and it's just another art form. I'm sure there's probably a time where people weren't happy with things that we consider okay today.
But some might say that, well, you can't make any money from it, so what's the point of doing it?
I don't think it's about the money as such, it's about the brand. I think that's something that people these days have taught us massively. It's about having a following, having that Instagram, there's a Twitter following, a Facebook following, an Instagram following. For example, I haven't got that many followers, but I now know if I post an advert for an Edinburgh Fringe show, I've now got, even though it's like 3,000 people who will see it and go and see it. Same with Tom. Tom's got like 10,000. That's a lot. That's a big.
Well, Tom, you are Mr. Instagram, aren't you? Let's be honest, magic wise. You've got.
I've got 300 and something followers.
I've got about 200. How many have you got?
10,000.
Yeah, just over 11,000.
So what's your thought process? How do you go about making one of your Instagram videos become a bit of a hit and getting shared and picking up extra followers?
I don't really think. I just enjoy doing it. To be honest, I just like showing an idea. Just like a little thing that's in my head.
So basically, there's no way to cheat the system. It's just got to be a good idea that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, there are ways to cheat, but I don't like that. I
think it's about the more visual it is. These days, people have a short attention span. It's why online is so much preferred to print, etc. But it's about that attention span, and visual magic is the strongest, I think. And I just think having that following is important. I mean, anyone who does like a fringe show knows they always say tweet me, Facebook me, and all that sort of stuff. And now these people are doing it,
and they put nothing on it. They just put a picture of them doing another show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But now people are having a following before they even get there. It's creating a fame, same as Dynamo had on YouTube. Same thing. He literally had a YouTube series, and then he got a TV show, and he had that fan base already there, ready to watch a TV show. I think it's just about understanding it.
You know, before Instagram tricks, it was like kids doing cardistry, right? So the Dan and Dave thing. And I remember our friend Rob James saying on the podcast before your podcast, which was the original Magic podcast.
Loved that one.
The podcast.
Yep.
Let's call it the best of the original podcast for magicians.
But you were both lazy and you only made 6 episodes.
Let's call it the best one.
I'm on episode 69 today.
And
It was a great podcast.
The band broke up. I remember on that podcast saying a thing that I've always remembered actually, which was the older magicians complain about the younger magicians because all they can do is do the moves, whereas the older ones, they say, we can entertain. And saying, to be honest, a lot of those guys, they can't entertain. And you know what? At least the younger ones, at least they've got the moves.
Do you know what, Harry? I just realised you had the record of being the youngest person ever on the podcast for nearly 40 minutes. Because Tom has now taken that crown.
This is ridiculous.
Tom, how old are you, Tom? You're about 12, aren't you? How old are you?
Funny.
Oh.
I'm 19.
19. So if you've never looked up Tom Elderfield's Instagram, go and have a look. He's a very creative young magician.
I am not happy about
Here's a
that.
good question.
I'm
How
not
much
happy
do you
about
how much does Dynamo pay you boys? That's what we all want to know.
And who gets paid the most?
Yeah.
Whoa, big dog over here, he does.
Dan Albion.
I've got a quick question for Harry though. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is that okay? Well, basically, I told Harry about this. That I wanted to ask this, and it's about the ladies. And I know he's got a lovely girlfriend. We all know that, Fran. She's very lovely. However, I just want to know, like, what is your opinions of using magic to, like, with women? Like, because magicians, we're all this weird like character, right? And ladies are like this thing that I still don't understand. I'll be honest, I'm struggling a lot. So I'm wondering, Harry, what is your opinions on using using magic? Sounds a bit weird, but telling people you're a magician and talking
Do you mean
to ladies.
using magic to pick up women?
Basically, I just want a bit of help myself here.
Okay. You're asking the wrong guy, but go on, Harry, you answer.
I don't know. I think
You should be asking Keelan Laser. He put a book out, didn't he, Hudson? Do you remember?
Paul Martin.
Paul Martin does it as well. Was that a book? Was it?
Yeah, How to Pull Chicks with Tricks.
Okay, I thought it was Keelan
Sorry,
Laser.
didn't Hudson do a show called How to Get Girls with Magic?
Yes.
Magic to get girls by.
Broadway Baby,
Really?
2-star review. I seem to
2-star
remember.
review.
2 stars. They said we were 2 stars.
And Hudson, just
Me and Kevin. They said we were 2 stars.
earlier on, De Cruz and I were talking about Groundhog Day. How many stars do you give that, Hudson?
4 stars.
Well, you said 3.
5 of it.
Yeah,
I thought it was fantastic.
I reviewed. This is terrible competition.
You said 3 originally, which is
And I reviewed it.
which is contrast to the 5 stars by Telegraph, 5 stars by Times, What's on Stage, Evening Standard, and The Independent. All 5 stars.
What are they?
It's a great show.
So I quickly answer your question, Tom.
I really do want to know.
Know that magic's weird. I'm not some amazing philosopher or whatever, but no, it's weird. People's perception of magic, especially young girls or whatever, it's this weird thing their uncle does. I can't remember which magician said it. It's the weird thing their uncle does at the dinner table at Christmas. I think as long as you know that it's a bizarre thing to approach a group of girls on the street with a deck of cards and not chat to them first is just odd, and make it natural. I took magic out on dates, but it was never a deck of cards. It was a packet of loops to make miracles happen they don't expect.
Hudson, you've got a hot girlfriend.
Smoking.
I'm coming to the wedding next year.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite. You going to that, De Cruz?
I got the invite. I haven't confirmed.
Did you get the invite, Tom?
No.
Unlucky.
Got lost in the post.
Did you ever use magic to get girls, Hudson, or was it really just a show format for you?
I have a 3-date rule with magic.
Was that?
Wait till the 3rd date.
Okay.
Because you don't want to be that guy.
That's quite good.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
you don't
I have a tip.
have to knock it out.
I
on
have
the
a
first
tip.
date.
Because eventually they want you go, we're doing this magic. You've got to, what is it, right?
I disagree. Here's a top tip from Young, and that is you can do magic on the first date, but it needs to look totally impromptu.
Yeah,
E.g.,
exactly.
you have no props.
Exactly.
Obviously, you can actually have props, but do bottle through table or ring fly or bend a coin.
Too
don't
good.
don't
Too good.
pull out a deck of cards.
So that's
I
what
do
Harry was
die
saying,
box.
loops.
Dagger chest.
Dagger chest.
String it out. You hide it underneath the table. So you're in somewhere nice, like your Pizza Express, something like that. The bill comes, and you go, one more thing. Put that on your head.
Did anyone ever own one of those?
I don't know what you're on about.
You don't even. There you go.
Literally, Tom is too young to even know. 20th Century Bra is a good date. Good date one.
I think Lodgy did that one, didn't
It didn't go well, did it?
he? That's very interesting. So, do you know, we just heard that noise then, and all of us for a second thought it might be a terrorist attack. We are definitely in the middle of London. Do you see that? That noise you heard? It's actually a guy having a go at his dog, I think.
I think he's shouting at himself.
Are we recording this? Is this still recording?
we're
This is
recording.
terrible. This is a great podcast.
It's,
This
is the worst one yet.
We're literally
don't
filling
say
time.
at the beginning in your own podcast, this is a great podcast. That's not a good
This is
idea.
an awful podcast.
I still just want some dating advice.
Use that
to be
bit at the start. It's an awful podcast. Are we just wasting time here to fill the time, or are we waiting until your battery runs out?
My battery's out 4%, so we've got to get on with it.
This one could be worse than episode.
That was Stranger's episode, wasn't it?
No, that wasn't strange.
For those who can't see, which is everyone,
Yeah, what,
I'll just double check which episode it is. Yeah.
what you didn't obviously see, because it's a podcast, is Hudson just held up his hands in the shape
With
of
a
a
number. Yeah, that was the worst
I'd love to know that, listeners, by the way. If we've got some people listening who have listened to every podcast, or the majority, let me know which your least favourite episodes are. That's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So, De Cruz, before my battery runs out, what do you think is the biggest problem with Magic today? How can it be fixed?
I feel like I've said it throughout this, because a lot of these questions have been about my sort of...
Is this when you were talking earlier about the Hudson balloon trick?
Champions of Magic. That's the biggest problem with Magic. No, I think I keep saying it, like, understand the public's perception of Magic, and look at the outside sources. Hudson and I are a big fan of comedy, and look at how way comedy's changed. So if you just looked at costume, everyone used to be suited back in the day, and now massive comedians who are well known, like Russell Howard, even though he's very commercial, is in a t-shirt and jeans and he gets away with it. And I think, not that magicians should just be in that, but they understand that the public are okay with that, and they can move along, and it feels very natural and close. And I think that is the big thing, is understand the public's perception. Don't just do a trick because it's got a cool method, or it's got a great trailer from Illusionist. I love him. I do love him. I love him, but that's...
Slam.
Oh, fuck.
Damn, a little bit of controversy there to end up.
No, I'm never going to get that contract with them, am I?
That's a good answer. Hudson,
I like them
thanks
as
for
well.
coming along. Really appreciate
Right,
it.
pleasure.
It's good to have you on the show. Give us a little update on wedding plans.
Wedding plans, me and Misdirection. Getting married, aren't we?
Misdirection. Google Misdirection.
Double S.
Double S.
Space.
Hudson's other half. She's also a magician. You're getting married.
Getting married in Crete.
Smoking hot. She really is.
Who's the biggest magic celebrity going to the wedding?
Unfortunately, you.
That's not true. It's Dave Wilmot.
Chris Cox.
Chris Cox, true. Star
He's
of
big
West End's
time.
Impossible. I'll tell you what.
He knows a lot of celebs. Has he ever told you?
Nope, never mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
Tom, thanks for being here. What's next for you?
Whatever I
I'm
told him
just
to do.
working. That's actually very true.
Yeah?
To be fair, following Harry's demands, working on a little Nando's trick for the old Instagram.
I've just heard about it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Nando's trick.
It's gonna be excellent.
When will this be out?
I don't know because I'm actually a bit scared to do it at the moment. I'll be honest.
Oh, okay.
Genuinely scared.
Can't wait to see it.
Mr. Nando.
Mr. Nando. Well,
I just want the black card, to be honest.
Well, me and Hudson are going to go and enjoy the evening. Obviously, you two, it's your bedtime. Okay. Thank you very much, De Cruz, for a very insightful interview with a young magician and Tom and Alan Hudson. Thanks very much, guys. Much appreciated. What was that? Was that meant to be the end of show music?
I forgot the end of the show music. I thought it started with that note, and I just went, oh no, it's not that tune, is it?
This is the music. I absolutely love this week's episode. It's always great to hear the enthusiasm of young magicians, isn't it? That was Harry De Cruz as my featured guest this week, and at the end there you also heard the voice of Tom Elderfield. If you're not familiar with Tom, go and have a look at his Instagram page. His surname is spelled Elderfield. Google Tom Elderfield Instagram, you will find it. He's done some amazing videos on there, some of which have gone viral. He's going to do some amazing things over the next few years as well. And also thank you very much to Alan Hudson. You will next see him on ITV's The Next Great Magician starting this November. And of course on the same show you will also see Barry and Stuart, but you'll see them before that next week right here on the Magicians podcast. You can't miss it. It's a double bill with Barry Jones and Stuart McLeod. It's next Friday. I will see you then. Have a great week. Take care. Bye bye.
I was hot, I want it all.